A former Hendry County Sheriff's deputy is now facing federal charges after the FBI says he slammed a man to the ground and then lied about it in a police report.
But I tell you what, when I watched the body camera, I was shocked and I was appalled.
Sir, I did not.
Stop talking.
Come on, bruh. Bruh.
Push up against me again, I'm gonna throw you back on this asphalt. You understand?
No,
me?
sir, I understand.
Do you understand me?
Respectfully.
So,
Former Deputy Williams grabbed the man by the shoulders and threw him to the ground.
Welcome back to the Civil Rights Lawyer channel. First, I want to thank you because yesterday afternoon, we finally surpassed 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. And obviously that wouldn't happen if you guys didn't watch the content. But this type of content is very important. So please, if you haven't already, subscribe, both here and at thecivilrightslawyer.com. There are some crazy things coming up, I promise you that. This is crazy also. In this video, we're going to talk about this Hendry County, Florida deputy who was fired and now indicted by the feds for violently taking down this guy he had in his custody in handcuffs. But this isn't the first time that he was fired. He's actually been fired before. After we go over what happened here, then we'll go over this guy's history, and I'll make sure that we're on the same page as far as what constitutional violations occurred here.
Last year, on the 4th of July, former Deputy Tyler Williams of the Hendry County Sheriff's Office arrested a man suspected of burglarizing a residence. As captured on his body-worn camera, former Deputy Williams placed the suspect in handcuffs and walked the man to the rear of his police vehicle to conduct a search.
No, I cannot say nothing. Can I please?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, I did
Stop
not.
talking.
No, what do you mean? You were in the back. Come on, bruh. Bruh.
So you lean against my car.
Oh my
Push up
God.
against me again, I'm gonna throw your ass back on this asphalt. You understand?
No,
me?
sir, I understand
Do you
that.
understand me? Fantastic.
Respectfully.
So,
Former Deputy Williams' supervisor was also on the scene, and the two had a conversation about the events leading to the suspect being placed in handcuffs.
No,
So
sir,
I am,
I do
attempting to
not.
put the window back
I
in
will.
from the
I
inside
will
with
push.
it.
I will put my sandal
trying to
back
lock
up
it.
there.
All of a sudden, a log comes hitting the window in my face. I'm like, oh, okay.
No,
So
sir.
I'm like, he's standing there with a log, actively bashing the window as I am trying to put it back in.
Do not.
I am fully lit in this bedroom. Okay?
During this conversation, the suspect attempted to talk to former Deputy Williams and to interject himself into the conversation on multiple occasions. In response to one of those times, former Deputy Williams grabbed the man by the shoulders and threw him to the ground. Handcuffed, the victim was unable to brace himself for the fall. Former Deputy Williams threw the man to the ground with sufficient force that he was rendered unconscious after his chin hit the asphalt. As the body camera shows, former Deputy Williams stood over the man as he lay motionless and yelled at him, telling him that he was warned to not push against former Deputy Williams.
I tell you about pushing up against me, you understand me?
The Hendry County Sheriff's Office terminated Williams' employment for multiple policy violations. And last week, a federal grand jury sitting here in Fort Myers, Florida, returned a criminal indictment against former Deputy Williams, charging him with 2 counts. 1 count, which is a civil rights violation, and a 2nd count, which is a count for obstructing justice by falsifying a police report. He is facing up to 30 years in federal prison.
So that was Roger Handberg, the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, basically the head federal prosecutor announcing the federal indictment of former Deputy Williams. Now you're going to hear from the actual sheriff who hired this guy after he was fired somewhere else, and who employed this guy, and then fired him himself after this incident occurred. This is the sheriff of Hendry County, Florida, and I've never heard of Hendry County, Florida, to be honest with you. This is Hendry County Sheriff Stephen Whiddon.
But I tell you what, when I watched the body camera, I was shocked and I was appalled. You know, when we swear a deputy in, he has great power, and with that comes great responsibility. And what I saw on this body camera, it violated the trust of our community. That trust is so sacred, and we work very hard to keep that trust between our deputies and our community of Hendry County, which is one of the reasons why we have body cameras, because it documents everything that they do. You know, initially when I saw this, again, shock and awe. He was placed on administrative leave immediately. We forwarded it over to the United States attorneys for a federal investigation, and he was ultimately terminated. So understand that in any law enforcement agency, people file complaints all the time. And I want to say this to that. Before I got body cameras, we got tons of complaints. Once we had body cameras, you know, we're a small county. We don't have the mass media that we have over in Lee County or bigger agencies. So we didn't put it out in a mass form that, hey, we now have body cameras. But I can tell you we've had them for probably 6 or 7 years now. 99.5 or higher % of all complaints that I get on deputies are absolutely false.
And prior to joining the Hendry County Sheriff's Office, Williams had served 5 years as a police officer with the Fort Myers Police Department. But then he was fired on February 23, 2021, after an internal investigation claimed that he violated 4 policies during a January 2020 traffic stop that led to the death of a toddler. In his 5 years with Fort Myers, Williams was put on paid administrative leave once following an officer-involved shooting in 2017 that he participated in. But that's not all. He wasn't just fired from Fort Myers. Further investigation reveals that he was actually arrested and charged for failure to contact DCF about an endangered child who later died. 3-year-old Serenity Robinson was killed in February of 2020 in a violent crash on Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. Fort Myers Police Department Officer Tyler Williams pulled over Leslie Jo Ziegler, Serenity's mother, on January 18th and found heroin and meth in the car with Serenity in the back seat. That was January 18th. Then on February 17th, the mother was driving again when she blacked out while high, left the road and struck several trees. The vehicle rolled and Serenity was ejected. She died at the hospital. The police said that Serenity wasn't restrained at the time of the crash. The law required that Officer Williams should have reported the mother to DCF, but he didn't. Williams was then placed on leave February 20th, pending an internal affairs investigation. The completed criminal investigation into Williams led to an arrest warrant, resulting in the criminal charges for knowingly and willfully failing to report known or suspected child abuse, abandonment, or neglect as a mandatory reporter. The charge is a 3rd-degree felony. He was actually arrested, taken to jail, and placed on a $10,000 bond. Those charges were later dismissed by a judge, but he was fired by Fort Myers. And then he pops up again in Hendry County. So one of the federal criminal allegations against former Deputy Williams is that he falsified his police report in order to make it look like his use of force was justified. There is a Supreme Court case called Scott versus Harris, and that says that even if cops lie, the federal courts are free to completely disregard what they say if there's video footage of the incident that shows that the cop is clearly lying. I had a federal judge once say in a court order doing this, saying, "Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?" And that's exactly what we have here. It doesn't really matter what he says because we can see that this guy's handcuffed, that he's compliant. He does claim in the video that he's pushing against him. We can't see any resistance whatsoever. But what we can see is this officer losing his temper. He loses his temper, and after threatening to do so, he basically grabs the guy, does a wrestling takedown, and since the guy's handcuffed, he can't catch his fall. He's completely defenseless, and he hits his head, and then if you watch the raw body cam footage, which is terrible, the guy is completely out. Completely out. And the supervisor's just standing there, clearly doesn't know what to do. While former Deputy Williams just he keeps talking, continues the conversation with the supervisor like nothing's wrong. It's really crazy.
He's been out here for a while. His legs are ate up with mosquito bites.
Yeah, she doesn't know how he got here because she said she kicked him out of the car after he bashed her face in and spit on her. She pulled him on the side of the road and kicked him out. And, she doesn't know how he got over here. She believes he lives in Lehigh. And on his address, he's at 10th Street. So
I don't know how to fucking take it out of a fucking You know what I mean?
Yeah, so he's been here for a hot minute.
Florida is in the 11th Federal Circuit, so we would look first to 11th Circuit case law on what is and is not excessive force under any particular fact scenario, but there's going to be a lot of cases in every federal circuit that says that you can't do this to somebody who is handcuffed and not resisting. Just briefly, the U.S. Supreme Court in a case called Graham versus Connor set out 3 different factors for the lower courts to look at to gauge whether or not a police officer used excessive force. The first factor they look at is the severity of the crime at issue. Here, he was a potential burglary suspect. So let's give him that potentially serious crime at issue. Secondly, whether or not the individual poses an immediate safety threat to any individual. What are the facts? He's handcuffed. He is shown on video being compliant. He's not resisting at all. He's not fighting the officer at all. He doesn't pose a threat to any individual in the world. Second factor, which is the most important, goes against former Deputy Williams. The third factor is whether or not he's attempting to flee or resist. And he's not. He's already in custody. He's compliant. He's just asking questions. He's talking. So just the officer having the first factor in his favor, potentially severe crime at issue, that's not going to be anywhere near enough. That's an easy prosecution. That's an easy civil suit under Section 1983. So as always, thanks for watching. Again, thank you very much for putting us over 500,000 subscribers. Please subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. You can also join the conversation with me about this, about civil rights topics, and about completely unrelated history things over at X at John Bryan ESQ. Also, you can find me on Facebook, where we're about to pass 400,000 followers on Facebook, at the John H. Bryan Attorney at Law page. If you have a video you want me to review, please use the submission link below. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.